My $9,200 wedding cake didn't just get messed up. It got obliterated. 6 tiers of red velvet and ivory fondant turned into a sticky, bright crimson crater on the ballroom floor. And right in the middle of it, face down in frosting like a bad crime scene photo, was my own sister. Half conscious, mumbling 2 words that made the whole room go dead quiet. Wrong glass. People thought it was a medical emergency. My husband, new husband, was already on his knees, checking her pulse like the ER doc he is. The band stopped. Somebody's aunt shrieked. A server dropped a tray. And I stood there in my heels, holding a champagne flute I hadn't taken a sip from, realizing something cold and simple. My sister tried to drug me at my own wedding. She just didn't end up drugging the right person. To understand how we got to frosting and sirens, you need the backstory. I'm Marianne, I'm 57, and I've spent most of my life being the capable one. The one who plans the holidays, balances the checkbook, shows up early, stays late, and pretends it's fine. I worked 30 years in hospital administration outside Annapolis, Maryland, the kind of job where you learn to keep your voice steady even when everything's on fire. My sister, Kendra, is 54. And if you've ever had a family member who collects attention like coupons, you already know her. She calls herself a content creator, which mostly means she films herself unboxing stuff she can't afford and arguing with strangers in comment sections. She's always got the newest iPhone, the best blowout, the perfect casual outfit that somehow costs 3 times what you'd find at Target. Here's the thing. Nobody in my family says out loud. Kendra has been sinking for years. Maxed out cards, late notices, just until next month loans. I found a statement once, by accident tucked in with my mother's mail, showing over $48,000 in revolving debt. And still, somehow my parents treated her like she was fragile glass and treated me like I was furniture. My parents' favorite phrase was always, "Just let it go, Marianne." Translation: let her do whatever she wants and don't embarrass us by reacting. Then I met Graham. He's 60, an emergency physician with that calm way of speaking that makes you believe problems have solutions. He comes from a family with quiet money. Old homes, established trusts, names that end up on plaques at charity events. Not flashy. Just solid. And Kendra saw that last name like it was a golden ticket. She didn't fall apart when I got engaged because she loved me and was emotional. She fell apart because she wanted access. New circles, new friends, new photo ops. 2 months before the wedding, she showed up at my townhouse carrying a designer tote and an iced coffee like she owned the place. No hello. No, how are you? Just, I'm obviously your maid of honor. I told her I'd already asked my best friend Tessa, who's a retired public defender with the kind of eyes that notice everything. Kendra smiled like I'd said something adorable and stupid. Marianne, she said, this wedding is going to have important people. We need someone who photographs well. That was the first clue. Not about love, about optics. And the small twist, one I didn't understand until later, was that Tessa didn't argue with me about Kendra. She just got very quiet, looked down at my table layout and said almost casually, "Make sure your champagne glasses don't look identical." At the time I laughed. I shouldn't have. The weeks leading up to the wedding felt less like planning a celebration and more like negotiating a ceasefire. Every decision turned into a referendum on Kendra's feelings. The flowers were too plain. The music was too old. The seating chart was embarrassing because it didn't put her near Graham's cousins from Connecticut, the ones with the lake house. Each complaint came with the same undertone. You owe me this. When I pushed back, even gently, my phone would ring within the hour. My mother, sighing into the receiver from her kitchen in Silver Spring, telling me Kendra was very sensitive right now. My father reminding me that family harmony mattered more than little preferences. And I'd do what I always did. Compromise. Adjust. Pay. I covered the cost of Kendra's dress when she said her card mysteriously declined. A silk number that ran $600, not including alterations. I told myself it was cheaper than the drama. That was my mistake. I kept treating peace like something I could purchase. The wedding itself took place at a waterfront hotel overlooking the Chesapeake Bay. White columns, polished wood floors, sailboats drifting past like postcards. Guests flew in from Chicago, Dallas, even California. Men in navy blazers, women in sensible heels and pearls. It was elegant in that restrained East Coast way. The cake sat on its own table under soft lighting, red velvet inside, gold leaf detailing on the outside, tall enough that the baker needed a step stool. $200, including delivery and setup. Graham joked it cost more than his first car. At the head table, the champagne flutes were identical. Thin crystal, no etching, no initials. I didn't think twice. Kendra did. She watched those glasses the way some people watch slot machines, waiting for the payoff. The band finished the main set. Dinner plates were cleared. The room relaxed. Laughter grew louder. That's when my phone buzzed once against my thigh. A text from Tessa. 5 words. No punctuation. Don't drink. Swap glasses. My stomach dropped. Not panic. Recognition. Suddenly, all those little moments lined up. The urgency. The obsession with placement. The insistence on standing close. The smallest twist hit me then. This wasn't impulse. It was planned. And I was sitting exactly where she needed me. Time does strange things when you realize someone you love is trying to hurt you. Everything slowed down, like the room had dropped into thick water. I could hear the band tuning back up. Forks clinked against dessert plates. Someone laughed too loudly at a joke I didn't catch. And right in front of me, my champagne flute sat there, innocent and sparkling, bubbles rising like nothing in the world was wrong. I didn't look at Kendra. I didn't look at Graham. I kept my face still, the way you do when a nurse tells you bad news in a hospital hallway and you don't want to scare the family. Years of crisis management kicked in. Breathe. Don't react. Don't tip your hand. I glanced down at my phone again. Tessa had sent another message. She used a dropper, clear liquid, just now. My pulse thudded in my ears. A dropper meant intention. It meant dosage. It meant she'd thought this through. I lifted my eyes slowly and let them drift. Casual, like I was just taking in the room. Kendra sat to my right, angled toward me, one hand resting near her glass. Her smile was tight, expectant. She wasn't drinking yet. She was waiting, watching. She wanted to see me take the first sip. I understood then what she wanted. Not for me to pass out. Not for me to get sick. She wanted me sloppy, loud, confused. The older bride who couldn't hold her liquor. The woman marrying into a respectable family and proving in front of everyone who mattered that she didn't belong. For a split second, the old instinct flared. Stand up, call it out, make a scene. But that's not how this kind of person loses. People like Kendra survive scenes. They spin them, cry, rewrite the story. No. If I was going to do anything, it had to be quiet. I needed an opening. That opening came in the form of Margaret, Graham's mother. She's in her late 80s, sharp as a tack, walks with a cane she does not need but likes. When Margaret moves, people move around her. Respect has gravity. She approached the head table from behind, tapping the cane lightly on the wood floor. Kendra's head snapped up like a meerkat. I felt her body turn. She stood halfway out of her chair, all bright eyes and performative warmth. Margaret, oh, I was just telling Marianne how beautiful you look tonight. Margaret smiled politely, the way women of her generation do when they've clocked a liar but don't feel like engaging. That's kind, she said, already looking past Kendra. Kendra leaned in, blocking her path, launching into compliments about the venue, the music, the view of the bay. Her back was completely to the table now. Completely to the glasses. That was my window. I didn't lift the flutes. I slid them. The tablecloth was thick, high thread count linen, smooth as ice. I placed 2 fingers on the base of my glass and one on hers and moved them in opposite directions, slow and controlled, less than 6 inches. No clink, no slosh. The bubbles barely trembled. Then, this part matters, I rotated the glass now in front of me just a touch. Kendra always wore lipstick, a dusty rose shade. There was a faint mark on the rim. I turned it away from her seat, just enough that it wouldn't catch her eye. The whole thing took maybe 4 seconds. When I looked up, Tessa was watching from across the room. She didn't nod. Didn't smile. She simply lifted her water glass an inch off the table and set it back down. Confirmation received. Kendra turned back, pleased with herself, unaware that anything had changed. She reached for the glass in front of her, my glass now, and raised it slightly. To family, she said, voice sweet as syrup. I raised my clean glass. To family. We drank. Or rather, she drank. I barely wet my lips. The relief didn't come right away. Instead, something colder settled in. Resolve. Now I had to sell it. I let my shoulders slump just a little. I answered questions slowly. Missed a punchline. Graham asked if I wanted water, and I said, maybe in a minute, like I was distracted. Kendra noticed immediately. She always noticed when the spotlight tilted. Her eyes lit up. Not concern. Satisfaction. She leaned closer. You okay? She whispered, loud enough to be heard, just soft enough to seem caring. Just tired, I said. She sat back, smiling to herself. The speeches began. The best man went first. Funny stories. Applause. Safe territory. I watched Kendra out of the corner of my eye. She shifted in her seat, rubbed her temple, took another sip. Liquid melatonin works fast, especially mixed with alcohol, especially at a dose meant to affect someone my size. Kendra was smaller than me, and she had been drinking steadily all night. When the MC announced the maid of honor, I felt Graham's hand tighten around mine. You want me to stand with you? He murmured. No, I said. Stay. Kendra rose. She swayed, just a hair, and caught herself on the chair back. She smiled it off, walked toward the microphone positioned beside the cake table. Of course she did. The cake was her backdrop. Proof of status, proof of access. She began well enough. Jokes, shared childhood stories. The audience responded. But then her rhythm changed. Words stretched. Pauses got longer. She blinked hard, like the room was too bright. I saw the moment she realized something was wrong. She gripped the podium, laughed nervously. Wow, that champagne really kicks. A ripple of polite laughter moved through the room. She tried to continue, but her tongue lagged behind her thoughts. She raised her glass again, my glass, and took another swallow, probably thinking it would steady her nerves. That's when it all unraveled. Her knees buckled. Not dramatically, just enough that her balance went. She reached out blindly, missed the podium, and fell forward, into the cake. The sound was unbelievable. A dull, wet crash followed by the snap of internal supports giving way. Frosting exploded outward. Red velvet collapsed. Gold leaf vanished under smears of white and crimson. Gasps, screams, chairs scraping back. Graham was there instantly, vaulting onto the stage. He rolled her onto her side, checked her airway, his voice calm but commanding. Someone call 911. Kendra's eyes fluttered open. She was confused, frightened, and high enough that her filter was gone. No, she mumbled. No, wrong one. The microphone lay inches from her mouth. Wrong glass, she said, louder this time. I had the drugged glass. You could feel the room freeze. Conversation stopped mid-breath. Even the band was silent. Graham looked up slowly. His face changed. Not panic. Understanding. He stood, turned to my parents, and said evenly, This is not a faint. This is drug interaction. My mother made a small, broken sound. My father started shaking his head. That's not... She wouldn't... The paramedics arrived minutes later. They loaded Kendra onto a gurney, frosting still in her hair. My parents followed, stunned, silent, and I stood there, looking at the ruins of a cake I'd spent months choosing, and felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Free. The ballroom didn't magically return to normal after the ambulance doors closed. The cake was gone. The illusion was gone too. But something quieter took its place. Truth. People finally saw what I'd lived with for decades, and no explanation from me was required. Later that night, my phone lit up with messages I didn't answer. My mother said Kendra didn't mean it. My father said I should have stopped her instead of letting things go that far. That's when the final twist settled in, clear as day. In my family story, I was still expected to manage the damage, even when I was the target. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. Because here's the truth I wish I'd learned sooner. Integrity doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to keep others comfortable. Fairness doesn't mean absorbing harm quietly. And family, real family, doesn't ask you to swallow poison, literal or emotional, just to keep the peace. People still ask me if I feel guilty about the cake, about the fallout, about my sister. I don't. That cake cost $9,000. What I gained cost me nothing. Clarity, boundaries, and the freedom to stop apologizing for surviving someone else's cruelty. If you've ever been told to be the bigger person, ask yourself this: bigger than what? And at whose expense? Sometimes the right thing isn't louder. It's simply refusing to drink from the wrong glass.